Good morning, everybody. This is Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest. We actually got a little bit of a windstorm, which is so nice and refreshing. You can tell October is just coming right in. Today, we're going to be talking about Elena. I had a nice presentation set up, and I didn't save it. Classic Diggs moment. So we are going to go ahead and go over the abilities that we know in the notices. We're going to talk about the vision cards a little bit. Then we're going to head on over to WoTV Calc, and we'll talk about some theory crafting with her. I do think that a lot of people are kind of hyping up the wrong combos with her. And I think a lot of people aren't really aware, or they're not really thinking about some of the longer term things like Espers, for example, equipment / vision cards. So we'll kind of get into all of that. Let's go ahead and dig in. All right, so first off, we want to go into the notices, and we just want to take a look at her abilities here. Now, a lot of these abilities have already been released. They've already been talked about. But I do just kind of want to point out a couple things because it's going to be foundational in how we think of her. Now, if you're newer to the game, Spellblade characters are some of the most complex characters to build for. So for example, just taking a look at her abilities here, you have a slashing element, you have light element, but then you have magic as the primary modifier for the ability. So a lot of people get confused when they see this because they go, oh, I can set magic attack and that's going to work for Elena, which is not true. What that means for Elena is that base magic is basically the same as attack for her, right? You have slashing, which is going to affect all of her slash-based abilities. And then you're going to have light element, which is also going to affect her light-based slashing abilities. So a lot of people with Spellblades get confused. They start throwing on magic attack onto Spellblades, which is not a good idea. And so right from the get-go of this video, since I do know there are a lot of new players out there, I did want to clarify this little detail because I think just clarifying this detail in the beginning of the video is so important, especially for new players. If you have questions on this, please ask below in the comments section. I will reply to you and I will answer your questions about this because it can be very obfuscating and you could inherently be crippling your character if you build her with like magic attack, for example. Now, she does have Subkododama, right? And Subkododama wielder does use magic-based abilities. So yes, she could have a magic attack form if you wanted her to, but her primary kit is going to be slash and light element and base magic. Now, her limit break is going to significantly lower counter ability on the target, deal a 3-hit large damage based on Elena's magic stat, and it's going to lower agility. I think this is going to be really good, really powerful. You are going to use this. Crystal Shine Bright is almost like a single hit version of this. So it's going to be a single hit, 2 strikes, and then it's going to be based on Elena's magic stat, and it's going to raise your own agility for 3 turns. I think it's really interesting how clear they're trying to be that her attacks are based off her magic stat. And I think it's because they are aware of the confusion that a lot of Spellblades and Rune Knights do face, right? Star Supernova is going to deal medium damage to targets within range based on caster's magic stat and bestows Demon Killer and Maneater. What I think is interesting about this, and you may debate this down below, Halloween is around the corner. I wonder if we're going to get a demon-based unit. I wonder if we are going to get a demon-based unit with this in mind and looking at this ability. It is something to think about for Halloween. Along with these abilities, though, we are also going to be getting her vision card. And her vision card is going to kind of send us in a direction with her character, right? Party-wide, it's going to give luck up, critical damage up, and then it's going to give strike attack resistance up. For the individual unit equipping it, it's going to give magic up, it's going to give evasion up. And then for Starlight Elena herself, it is going to give light attack up and critical hit rate up. This is going to be pretty good for Elena. This is probably going to be one of the best in slot VCs for Elena. However, the thing that you have to keep in mind is that the party-wide ability is very restrictive in a sense. It only gives luck up, it only gives critical damage up, it only gives strike attack resistance up. So there may be a situation where you're running Starlight Elena, and it's actually going to be better to run another vision card on her. And that is where kind of, I think a lot of confusion is coming from. And a lot of her kind of synergies are probably not going to be relying on this vision card. It might actually be better to set a different vision card. This vision card is very much oriented towards light evasion play, as well as critical hit play. So light evasion would work really well with Rob, Warrior of Light, for example. Crit play would work really well with Rob as well. A lot of people forget that Rob is one of the highest critical hit rate units in the game because he does have access to Sub Lancer, which means he has access to Deadly Mastery, which is critical hit rate up. He also has access to Sharp Spear, which is a plus 42 critical hit rate ability. So she is going to play very well with Rob. Rob also has Sub Samurai if you do want to go the evasion route for that evasion plus 20 or whatever it is. So, I mean, Rob is going to play really well with her. What's not going to play really well with her, though, and with this VC, is Rob's vision card. And I have seen a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, Rob's vision card. And that's where we're going to kind of make the transition to WoTV Calc here. And we're going to talk about some of the vision cards and why they're not as good as you might think. I can count on, I can't count actually how many times people have said that Rob's vision card is going to be sort of this amazing synergy with Elena's vision card. And I think that's completely wrong. I actually think Elena's vision card's synergy has almost zero synergy with Rob's VC. The only thing Rob's VC is going to add in the party to Elena is evasion plus 20. That's it. And if you are just adding evasion plus 20, in the past that might have been enough when we had Shiva's VC, right? And we were setting Shiva for evasion. But units have so much more accuracy now. Units have 100% hit techniques. You are kind of in a situation where you're going to have 3 vision cards, right? If you are going in GVG or PvP. And if you had to choose between having Scion set, right, for, dark resistance, potentially, and some light attack up for the party, right? Or if you had the choice between Rob's VC or evasion plus 20 for the party, it's really clear to me that you're going to choose Scion, right? So there's this conversation right now about light evasion that I think is not really accurate. I think you're probably... and this is kind of if you're going a light formation route, what you're going to do is you're going to set a lot of modifiers. You're not going to set Rob's vision card. And what you're actually going to do is you're going to set a TMR like Sage's Barrette, right? Why would you use Rob's, kind of kit, like his vision card slot for evasion plus 20, when you could run Sage's Barrette and get luck plus 35% for 3 turns on allies, nullify blind, nullify stop? That's very powerful buff. Units do use this buff as well. It's not like this is a buff on a TMR that just doesn't go off, right? Like, units will actually use this, and this is going to give you much more than what you would have gotten if you were just running Rob's BC, especially party-wide. So number one, I wanted to address that just because I think there's a lot of people out there who are like, oh my god, gushing, Rob's VC is going to be great. And not only can you not put it on Elena because it has attack up on it, right? It has no magic on it, but it doesn't have a really good party-wide ability because the party-wide ability gives attack up and critical evasion up. So Elena cannot do anything with attack up, right? And again, this is where that confusion comes in, right? Because Elena is a Spellblade-esque character. She needs magic, she needs slash attack, and none of that is on Flash of Insight. So you will not be running Rob's VC. I would be really surprised. What I think you will be running probably is going to be Scions, right? So if you do have access to Scions, you're going to run Scions in the party. You could even run Scion on Elena herself because it does have 90 magic if you don't have her VC. Slash attack up 35 for light element units in the party, gives the party wide of agility up. Not only that, you could even run Horn's First Division Solidus. This is another VC you could actually put directly on Elena if you had to. It does increase magic attack, so maybe you would use this if you're running Elena like a magic-based, like Kododama spell ability, which I do think is possible that you will see Kododama Elenas out there. It also gives slash resistance party-wide and HP up for light element units, which is really good. Like, there's just so many cards to me that are better. You could run Trousseau, Scion. Like, universally, you want to have Scion set. There are so many dark units out there. Having that dark resistance is going to be great. Another thing to consider is Jaden is coming out in the near future. Jaden's VC is going to give AoE resistance to the party, missile attack up. While the missile attack is not incredible for her, she is going to get AoE resistance, and she's also going to get Dex 35%. As we've seen with Uldira's VC, Dex 35% is a huge base increase to critical hit rate, especially on critical hit rate based units. So this is going to be a really natural synergy. Now, talking about synergies, talking about units, and talking about Jaden, let's talk about Jaden real quick, because a lot of people don't understand kind of what Jaden does or why Jaden is going to be a good combination with Elena, right? A lot of people probably don't even know that Jaden is not really an evasion unit, right? He doesn't have necessarily reflex. He has luck 215. He tends to be more oriented towards damage. He does have magic reflex, right? Because he has access to sub red mage, but he's going to be really good with Elena because he has a couple features. He can decrease the enemy's attack, which is going to be really good, right? But he also has a buff ability, which is going to increase agility 20% and increase magic 60% for the units around him. A 60% buff in magic is extremely powerful, especially if we're considering that would be on both Jaden and Elena. So the synergy with Jaden and Elena is going to be very powerful. And I'm wondering if we might see Elena potentially with like some native enmity generation up as well to kind of pull the hate away from Jaden. It'll be really interesting to consider. Now, of course, talking about unit synergies and talking about kind of what's going to work really well with him, let's go ahead and throw on some filters here, and let's talk about the other light units that we currently have right now. We do have Engelbert. Now, Engelbert is actually a moderate option. I would say if you're looking for a tank, though, Warrior of Light has a history of being a very powerful evasion tank, right? So if Elena is not a tank, if she's just like a damage dealing Spellblade, you could run a situation with like Warrior of Light, Elena, and Jaden. And all of a sudden you're going to have these evasion boxes ticked, and you're going to have a very powerful light element composition. Now, if you wanted to go the other route and you wanted to go a more magic based composition, you could slip Yuna in there, run Yuna, Jaden. You could put the Bahamut VC in for that magic 50%, which Jaden and Elena and Yuna would all benefit from. There's turning out to be so many synergies here, but you really have to know what units are going to work and what units aren't, and how it all fits together. We could throw Mashri in, Ramza when he gets his EX, right? It's also important to consider, right, if you're going into class match, one of the most powerful class match light combinations back in the day was Mariel with Yuna and Rob or Warrior of Light, right? And Mariel is a very strong evasion unit, and she's a powerful monster to contend with. So if you're going into class match, it's very possible you're going to be running Mariel in your light composition with Elena to kind of deal that damage-ish to them. Now, I've only talked about light element units. Let's talk about rainbow comps here real quick. Let's also talk about rainbow comp vision cards. Because while all of these vision cards are great, there are situations where you're going to be running kind of, you know, rainbow-based formations. And in that situation, I'm going to give a lot of the advice that I would normally give. If you're running Starlight Elena in that type of a composition, you would probably want to run a magic-based VC on her, right? Because you want to benefit from that magic up and you want to buff your party. Winter Holiday would be a great option for you. You could also run something like Black Rose Helena's VC, right? Get that agility up going. Again, Scion is always universally a good VC to set. You could also probably on another unit, right? Like if you're also running like GL's Zahn, for example, and you still want that luck up % for the rainbow composition, you could run Secrets of the Heart, which is going to be really good. You could also look into kind of Pierce resistance depending on where we are at in the Pierce meta. There's just a lot going on here. I also think one of the more underrated vision cards is Carbuncle. If you don't have Elena's VC, you could run Carbuncle potentially on Elena and you could get some benefit from that. So really there's a lot of things going on here that are pretty good, and Elena has pretty much a really clear shot of what she's going to be doing. The big drawback though is Espers, and you know, we'll touch on equipment after, but I do want to touch on Espers because she has no good Esper. There is, and this has been a Spellblade problem for a long time, there is no Esper besides Igaion, really. And Igaion is not a 3-star Esper on JP yet, that really specializes in Spellblade units. And even in terms of the light element Espers, you know, your best bet is probably going to be Carbuncle, and you're probably going to run Carbuncle here. You'll probably grab light attack up, and then you'll look at like Dark Killer, Dark Resistance, Missile Resistance, right? Like you're going to be like searching for what to set on her, and you know, it'll create some interesting compositions and setups, I think. But it's definitely one of those situations where you're like, the maximum benefit you're probably going to get from an Esper is like a plus 25 mod, unless you go like a hybrid build, right? Unless you plan on setting Carbuncle and you grab the magic attack nodes. So then all of a sudden your Elena is going to be, maybe you do light attack up on your Elena, right? Instead of running some other vision cards. And then all of a sudden you could either have Kododama abilities be viable, or you could have her Spellblade abilities be viable, right? So there's, you know, different ways to think about it. I'm not sure that would be the best way to go. I would tend to go one direction and then lean more defensive. But that is a way that you can kind of make magic attack more viable and get more out of your Espers. Well, really, there is no Esper that's going to be great for her. Probably the best Esper is going to be Bahamut with Maneater, Magic Up. That's probably going to be the only Esper that's going to be good in like a GVG situation. And even then, it's not going to help you in PvP, right? Like, or sorry, in PvE. So I am a little concerned about the modifiers with Espers. One thing to consider though, since we are talking about Espers, is we do have the White Dragon Esper coming out here. And the White Dragon Esper actually has really high magic. It has a lot of magic nodes, slash resistance, dark killer, pierce resistance, critical damage up. So it's possible when the White Dragon comes out in GL, it will be one of the best Espers for Elena, because you will be able to grab those critical damage nodes, which will effectively add modifier onto her attacks. The question, of course, is going to be, is that magic plus 25% going to be more powerful than light attack plus 25 that you're missing out from Carbuncle, right? Or is that magic plus 25% and critical damage plus 15 going to out damage the light attack plus 25 from Carbuncle? That's kind of what we're going to be asking, and that's what we're going to have to look at in regards to Espers for Elena, because she kind of is in a tricky place. And, you know, I hate to say it, but Bahamut is pretty fiercely like fought over. Maybe, you know, Carbuncle becomes Yuna's Esper and Bahamut goes on Elena. You know, even then, what if Sakura 120 comes out? You don't have 3 like good magic Espers that are like light and, you know, universal that you can use. So lots to think about here in this regard. White Dragon though, I mean, I guess you do. You have Carbuncle, White Dragon, and you have Bahamut if you really had all 3 of them. And that would be if you got White Dragon when he was maxed out. So lots to think about here in terms of Espers, especially for the future of Elena. Equipment wise, you're going to be running Sword of Light. If she can equip Sword of Light, there is no reason you're going to equip another weapon. what you would need if she can, one, equip Sword of Light, which I think she will because Spellblades can equip it, Rune Knights can equip it. So I imagine she'll be able to equip Sword of Light. What you would need in order to not equip Sword of Light is, you know, something so massive on a sword that it would be like something we've never seen before. It would have to be a sword that had like magic plus 30% and evasion up, or something really crazy on it, right? Spirit penetration, like really high spirit penetration, along with, you know, slash attack. Like, it's going to have to be really hard or really high. Like, yes, Sword of Light only has 126 magic, but you have a 45 mod between light attack plus 30 and slash attack plus 15. You are going to need to have something better than that in order to, you know, compete with Sword of Light. And Lohengrin has slash attack plus 15 and like magic 180, doesn't even come close to Sword of Light. So it is going to be really interesting to see what her sword is going to bring, because I'm a little hesitant that it's going to be like Lazalia's sword level, especially if it's only given to us on the challenge board and you don't have to farm a plus 5 version of it. I'm a little hesitant, so we'll kind of have to wait and see. Anyway, guys, sorry I didn't have a full-on presentation. Sorry, we're just kind of going through WoTV calc for this video. Absolutely, I just full-on tanked it and deleted my presentation on accident. So thank you everybody that's watching this. Sorry that I didn't have a presentation ready for you. Hopefully I'm not going to do that on my tower guide that's coming out tomorrow afternoon. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much. If you want to support me, make sure you go to dig.gs/offer or dig.gs/coins, and have a great rest of your day.